Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new session with Code with Sally. The session run every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope you had a great week so far. The sessions are all recorded. You can see them on Code with Sally on YouTube. And the channel is Code with Sally. There is a playlist for English, another one for Arabic. If every session we finish, after we are done, I upload the recording. So if you have missed any of the previous sessions, you can watch them there, and make sure to subscribe so you get notified when I upload a new video. Today, we'll continue our journey with SOQL. We didn't start yet talking about SOQL. The first session, we just explained briefly what's the difference between SOQL and SOQL and how SOQL is used for search more than just record retrieval. And we have been focusing on the SOQL. Hopefully today will be the last session, depending on the time and how far we can get in the SOQL and the topics I want to explain. But hopefully it will be either today, the last session for SOQL, or today and the next week. Let's get started. And if anyone has a question, I'll keep an eye on the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask your question. And if you're watching the session offline and you have questions, you can reach out to me via LinkedIn, Slack, or email, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, so we looked before into the syntax of SOQL, how we can do filtering, how we can do pagination. We did various things with the syntax, and we saw the capabilities and how to order. One major thing we didn't touch upon yet, and that's what we want to look into. It's where we want to query relationships. Like you can have account and contact, and you want to get, when you are querying accounts, you want to get child records, or while you are querying contacts, you want to get the parent details. So we want to see today with SOQL how we can do this these statements, and how we can get from the parent the child, or from the child the parent details. So the first is querying parent records from child. And I started with that because I feel it's a bit easier than the other way around. So we want to be, let me open here from Salesforce. I will open the schema builder, so it's easier to describe what we want to show or display, or we are trying to query. So let me open the schema builder. So we have accounts and we have contacts. So one account can have multiple contacts. So the parent is account and the children are the contacts. So let's say we have a query where we are saying here, select first name and last name from contact, because I care about the context and I want to see what context I have. And like that, while running this, we'll get the first name and last name of all the contacts I have in the org. The ask now, we want to query as well the parent. And in that case, we want to get details about the parent, which is the account. So we want to see how, while we are having a SOQL statement on a child record, how we can get the parent details. So we can do that using the dot notation. So we can get the parent records from a child using the dot notation. What does that mean? Like we saw, select first name and last name, and that's what we have here in the query. But here, so we have select first name and last name from contact. Then we want to get the account name. So to do that, you know that the field, it's called account. So we'll say account.name. So that means I want, and when you see here, we are doing autocomplete with this plugin. So you'll find it tells you, do you want to get the account ID, or you want, and it has plus here, or you want to get details about the account. So I want to get details about the account. So if I click on it, it will do the dot notation for me, and then it starts listing for me the account fields. So in that case, I can say I want the account name, or I can say account dot industry, or account dot annual revenue. So I want to get multiple details about the account along with the context. So if I hit run now, you will see here we have contact, first name and last name. If I hit run now, we'll have, it tells me that for the contact you have, that's the first name, that's the last name, and this is the account, and you have account.name, which is this value, this is the industry, this is the annual revenue. So it gives me the details of the account of each contact in the same row of the contact that I'm retrieving. So that's how we can get the parent record from the child. Let's try another example. And let's say here, this is like a set of objects I created just to simulate something we'll get to soon. But I have, for each contact, I have multiple projects. So I created a project custom object. Each project can have multiple tasks. Each task can have multiple activity, and each activity can have multiple comments. So I created kind of a hierarchy for me. So I want you to help me write a SOQL statement that I'll be looping through the project tasks. I have a ticket that I want to display the project tasks. So the task details. So I will like query the project tasks, and along with it, I want to get the project name. So can you try, give it a try in the chat to write me this statement, SOQL statement, and after that I can take it, copy and paste, and run it. If not confident, I can just go ahead and do it myself.
Okay, just repeat the question again, please.
I want to be querying the project task, which can be a parent record for the activity or a child record for the project. So my main point, I want to query project tasks, and I want to be getting the project name along with it. I want to write the SOQL statement that gets the name of the task along with the project name for it as a parent record. So if I'm saying I want to select, I am saying name, I want to select name from, I said the main object that I want to select from is the project task. So I write project task, and I want, while getting the project task, I want to be getting the project name. So I want to get the details of the parent record of the project task. So in that case, what should I write here? What should I select?
Let it tax.
I will, you said, sorry, what?
I said you select the project task.
I already did that here, project task, but I want to get the project name for it.
Okay,
Like
you do project
project.
dot name.
Yes. So I have project here, but I have project C __ C, which is the field name. If I do that and try to do a dot after,
Yes.
it doesn't understand that. That's the field name, which will get me the project ID. To be able to traverse to the parent, when we tried with the account and contact, that's because they are standard object. But with custom objects, instead, we go for the plus here, which will be the project __ R. R means relationship. So I want to go to the relationship, the parent relationship project, and get the name. So if I run execute now, I see that this is the project task. And for each project task, what's the project name? So in the project __ C gets me the record ID only. I cannot traverse to the parent using the __ C. That's just the ID. To traverse to the parent, I have to switch the __ C to __ R. Okay? And that's because these are custom objects. If I go back to the account and contact, Here we didn't have underscore underscore C or underscore underscore R because account and contact, those are standard fields, the same as like when we are selecting from contact, we don't say contact underscore underscore C because this is a standard object. So the same, like when we did that, account ID is the field that we cannot traverse because it's just the ID of the record, the same as when we did underscore underscore C for the project. But here, because it's standard, the relationship that I can traverse through it is the account. In my case, when we did the project, it was the project underscore underscore R. So that's the difference between the standard and the custom. Is that clear?
Yes, it is very clear.
Okay. The other thing we saw now, how we traverse it in the like the extension here, or you can run the same query in the developer console or the tool you prefer. The second thing that we want to make sure we are clear about it is how we can use that in Salesforce in Apex. So we discussed before that, let's say this is your statement that you have in the extension, the Google Chrome extension. We take here, this will return for me a list of S objects. And we discussed before what are S objects. And we said here it will return a list of S object of type project task. So I have to do this. It will return a list of project tasks. And I will say list of tasks equal, and then I would do open and close a square bracket, and I would take this query. And we saw that before. It's not something new, but just to refresh. And when I will loop through them, we saw this before, because it's a list of project tasks, I will be looping through task by task. And I will loop through the list here. And if I want to print the details of this task, so I will say here task, and I say here task object dot name. So I will print the task name from project. I want to print the project name. So here I have to start with the task because this is where I'm coming from. So it's the record task, and then it's the same. I cannot use the project underscore underscore C. This will return for me the ID. So I want to print the name. So I will have to go to project underscore underscore R, relationship of the parent dot name. And I will do that. And if I run the debug log now, the debug, open the debug log, I will see here, it listed for me or printed for me the format I wanted. What's the task name and from which project, one by one. So it's the same, like we have here 4 records. Here, when we use the extension here, we've got 4 records. So it's the same. The only difference or the new thing here is that if you want to go to the parent, you will be using underscore underscore R, the same name of the master detail relationship or lookup, but instead of underscore underscore C, you will be doing instead of the C, the R, and then dot, and you start with the name of the field that you are interested to bring. Again, my advice for you, if you want to write any SOQL statement, go first, try it, plain SOQL, see that it's working and it's doing what you want, then take it and use it in Apex. Any questions so far? In the chat?
No.
Okay. And the chat is good. Okay. So let me go back here. So that we saw how we can use the dot notation to retrieve the parent records from a child. And I wanted you to remember here the difference between standard and custom. Standard, we used account.name directly. In the custom, we had to use underscore underscore R instead of the C for the field name to be able to traverse to the parent. So just be careful with that, because sometimes people forget and use the underscore underscore C, and then they get an error. And the error you would get if you forget, let me show it to you. If you try to do it here with the project underscore underscore C instead of an R, it would tell you that project underscore C at this location, that there is an error, that they don't understand the relationship, because underscore C is a name of a field, not representation for a relationship. So that's why they are saying make sure if it's a custom relationship, not standard, make sure that you append underscore R at the end. Okay, so we saw as well how we can use the details of the parent and how we can access it in Apex. So that should cover how we can do it in the developer console in case of the query editor or Salesforce load inspector, or how we can do it in Apex as well. Let's move on. So we saw now how from the contact we got the account, or how from the project task we got to the project and got the parent details. Here we want to do the opposite. The opposite we want when we are querying the parent, we want to get all the related child records with me. So in that case, we said to get the parent from the child, we use the dot notation. Here, to get from the parent the child record, we use subqueries. So the subqueries is what we would use to get the child record details. Subquery, let's see it together. Let me write one here for you. So I want to get select name from account, and I will get industry, and I will get annual revenue as well. Here, if I run this, it's just getting details from the account, nothing more. What I want to do is to write a subquery. How can we write a subquery? Subquery will be as if we are getting an extra field. So we do a comma as if we are separating a field from the other, and then we open and close a bracket. When we open and close the bracket, we start to write another query, another select query. But we call it subquery because it's between the brackets and it's as if treated as one of the fields we are retrieving. So here I will do select first name and last name from contacts. How did I know contact versus contacts and how to do that? Let's see together. If I go to setup and you go to the object, you go to the child object. So in that case, I go to contact, I go to contact, then I will go to fields, and I will search for account or the relationship we have with account. And that will be the account name, which is a lookup for account. You click on the field to see the details of this field. You look for something called child relationship name. That's what tells me what to write in the subquery. Here it says that the child relationship name is contacts. So that's why I will get from contacts. And again, this is just the starting example. This is a standard object. So we'll take the name as if we don't append anything to it, just contacts. So if I do that from contacts and I run, now I will see that I'm getting the account details that I asked for, account, name, industry, annual revenue, and then it will tell me the contacts. So the contacts here tells me that there is one for those. I have two contacts here, and then it will start telling you, like, for contact 0, which is the first contact, what's the first name and last name. Then for contact 1, which is the second contact that they could find, what's the first name and last name, and so on. So that's how, like, here we have 3, so it went through number 3 as well. But for some, they don't have any, or they have 2, or have 1. So that's how you would be able to get from the parent the child records as well. So again, to verify, like, we have select name, we are selecting the fields we want from account. That's normal. We did it last time and we did it a lot together. Then you do a comma as if you will add a new field from accounts, but instead of adding fields from account, we do bracket, open and close, and we do the subquery. Subquery, it's another query statement, SOQL. So we do select, and I say I want first name, last name from. Here, the from is the only difference or the unusual because we are not saying from contact. We are not saying the object name. We are using the relationship name. And we didn't append anything to it because it's standard. Okay. How we can find a relationship name? We try this together. You go to the child record, the child object, and then you open from the fields the relationship field. Either it's the lookup or it's the master detail. You open the field and you look for child relationship name. And that's the name that you will be using. So that's what we tried together. And we tried it with the standard objects, account and contacts, but we'll try it again now with other custom fields. Let's try something as well before going to that. I want in this relationship or this schema, I want to assume that I'm interested to get all the contacts along with their projects. So I want my query to be on the contacts, and along with each contact, I want their own projects. So what can we do? First, I will start the regular. I will say first name, last name from contact. Now I want to query the child records as well. And the child records are coming from the object called project, but I cannot use the project as a name to select. But first, let's prepare it. What we'll do is we separated first name and last name with a comma. I'll separate the subquery with a comma as well, open and close bracket. What I care about from the project, I select name from. And here, I need to stop and say, okay, let me go check the relationship. Can you tell me which object I should open now to check the relationship name I'll be using to get projects while querying contacts? Which object I should open to check?
You can open the project
Okay.
object.
Yes, correct. So let me open here Object Manager. I go to Project. And where should I go?
With the relationship.
Field and Relationships. Yes.
Yes. Open contact.
I open Contact because that's the relationship for me. And I look for
Yeah.
child relationships name. So it's projects. It's called projects. And sometimes it's not the object name in plural. So it's very important that you open and check because sometimes it can be ABC projects, important projects. You don't know because when you are creating the object, you can specify the relationship name. So sometimes people change it. Sometimes you have duplicate or similar objects names in the Salesforce append something to it. So don't take it for granted that it's the object name in plural. Open and check. So I have here projects. So if I do that and try to run, I'll get an error. And the reason why, because I took projects as is. We did that with contacts. What's the problem here? The problem here with contacts, the relationship was standard. So we don't need to append anything to it. Here, it's custom. So the same way we did when we got to the parent relationship, we did underscore underscore R. Here, I will do that as well. So I will run. And now here, I can see, for example, for this contact, I have two projects. And it starts telling me that it's John Project 2 and John Project 1. So it's a way for you to get, while getting the contact, for each contact, what are the projects related to it? Okay. What we want to do is to learn how we can use this in Apex because we don't, most of the time, and it's recommended that you come and run your query here first or in whichever tool you prefer to just validate that your logic is right. But what about Apex? How and where how you will use them. So that's the important thing. I will take the query here and I will replace this here. Now this is, should I do a list of projects or a list of contacts as the return type of this query?
List of contacts.
Correct. So it's the list, the data type that it will return, or the S object type it will return, it will be from the main query. So my main is the contact. So I will do that. List, contact, and I will do list of contacts, and I will do equals square bracket. Sorry. And I will take my query and put it up. And I will do here for contact, contact object, and list of contacts. I can here, I want to loop through the projects. So how can I loop through the projects for this contact? I would do here for projects. It's projects underscore underscore R. But what's the API name of this object? You go here, click on object, project, and you find that it's project underscore underscore C. So that's what you will be looping through project by project. So I would do it like that. And I would say contact object dot. What should I say in the dot here to get me the projects of this contact?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
So now we got our query where we are querying the contact along with their projects. I want to loop through the projects of this contact, of the contacts. So we did first a for loop through the contacts, and now I want for each contact to loop through the projects for them. So I'm asking here, in my for loop, I don't have a list, like I cannot do here list of contacts because I want to get the projects. And it's the project of each contact. So I have to write contact object. And instead of writing first name or last name of contact, what should I write here?
Project underscore underscore R.
Correct. So projects with an S, it's the same relationship name. So I will do that. And then I will say system.debug project. And I will say project object dot name of contact. And I can say here contact object dot first name and contact object dot last name. Okay, so let's execute it and see it together. So I got here, if you remember when we did, like all the contacts didn't have projects. So that means when we did the query here, my debug statement is just under the projects. So for all of them, projects was null. And there is no projects, so it didn't go through the for loop. It went through the for loop twice because we had 2 projects only for 1 contact. And that's why we got in the output, what's the project? What's the project of the same contact here? Okay, so again, to execute like this in Apex, it's the same as any regular SOQL statement. The only difference is the subquery that we are adding. And we saw that together before, or we tried it in the extension on Chrome, and we saw what the results and that it returns values. When we want to loop through them, we have to use contact object like the parent record. So that's why, for example, here I'm looping through the contacts one by one, and then for each of them I will loop through the projects, and then I will start printing the project names, and I can print the contact. And it depends on the situation and the use case that you want. Okay, any questions, any confusion here?
Okay, now I want to ask, so whenever we are working with subqueries, we need to use a nested for loop.
And that's you don't you need to do that only if you want to loop through all the contacts and to get their projects, for example. But let's say I know here, for example, that I will limit to 2, for example, and I know that I have 2 contacts. I can say directly here without this for loop. I can say list of contacts of 0 dot projects, for example. So that means I'm looping through the contacts, the projects of the first contact that I have. And okay, and here it's saying it's giving me this error now because I don't have contact anymore. So let's comment this. So okay, didn't return. So let's put that here again. So this is a list of contact 0. It should work. And I will replace the contact object with that because I don't have this anymore. The point is, and this should work. Like I should be missing something. I have to double check it. But the point is, do I need always to have a nested for loop? The answer depends on the situation and the use case. In my scenario here, I wanted you to go through contact by contact and then go for each for their projects and print the projects and tell me what's the project name and it's related to which contact. So it depends on the situation. This one is to go through the contacts you got here. And most probably that will be the use case. And that's why, let's say you were interested only 100% in projects. Why would you do a subquery and a query on contacts? You could simply say, I want to select name from project, and that's it. And you don't care about anything else. Most probably you do the parent query and use the subquery because you want to get accounts with their contacts. You want to get the parent with the child record. And most probably when you do that, you would need a nested for loop, one to loop through the parent records and one to loop through the child records for each of the parents you got. So, but again, it depends on the situation. And as I said, like if you find yourself working with projects only, you don't need the contact anymore, then maybe it was a wrong decision to go with a query based on context. You could base it on projects in the first place. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we saw how we can use it in Apex. The next thing is that we want to learn about something very important. And that's how many levels you can go. Like what we saw together now, we saw either account going to contacts, we got the contacts of account, or we got the contact with their projects. So we got 2 levels. And that was the maximum you can do for a very long time. Starting from API 58 and later, and until today, like when we recorded the session, the SOQL now supports 5 levels of parent-child relationship. That means what? Including the root. So if I have this hierarchy that we opened together, account, for each account we have multiple contacts. For each contact we can have multiple projects. For each project we can have multiple tasks. And for each task we have multiple activity. And for each activity you have multiple, one or multiple project task activity comment. Those from project to the comment, those are custom objects I created for the purpose of like the session. How we know the roots, the root or the levels. Here, I'm assuming that we'll start with the account. Like my main query will be from the account. So I will go and do that. Select name and annual revenue, or let's do this first. So we have the autocomplete. I will say name, industry, and annual revenue of contacts. So that's the main query. So that's root, or that's level 0, level 1, if we'll start counting from 1. So that's level 1 or the root. Now I want to get the contacts along with my accounts. So let's do that together. We'll keep adding together to see how it will work. So here I would say I make it indented like that so it's easier for us to see it. But I would say first name and last name from contacts. And we saw before how we could figure out the relationship, and we saw it's called contacts. So I will go with that. So now I got for each account, what is the contact along with it. For the sake as well of this demo, I will put here a where clause. This where clause will just return for me a single account, so it's easier to see. So here I'm getting accounts with their contacts. So that means account is level 1, the root. Level 2 is the contact. Now I want to add a third level. Sorry, you have a question?
Oh, no. I'm just following you.
Okay, so now I want to go to the third level, which is projects. So again, how can we find the relationship name? I will go to project, fields, go to the parent, like the lookup or the master detail field, which is contact here. And I will have here the name is projects. It's very important where you will put your subquery. I won't put the subquery next to contact. Like I won't do it like that. Select name from projects __ R. Let's do that. It will give you an error because this relationship is not known. There is no relationship between projects and account. The way we have it now, it's assuming that the project is related to account or the account is the parent record. But in our schema, project is related to contacts. So that's very important. So we won't write it here. Remove that. Here, I would do this just for clarity. I would do it as if I'm selecting an extra field from contacts. So here, it's an extra field on contacts. It's within the brackets of the contact because the contact is the parent record. So this is where you will do the subquery. Now, if I run this, I have as well returned the projects of contact. Okay. That makes me at level 3. So I have account level 1, contact level 2, project level 3. We want to go until level 6 and see if I can go to level 6 or not. So we want to go to level 4. Level 4, that will be 1, 2, 3. The 4 will be the project task. Okay. So I will go here. Again, the parent of my project task is project. So I will add it as if I'm adding a field. Sorry, this one, let's put it here. As if I'm adding an extra field for projects. The subquery would be here within the parent object. So I will say here, select it from, sorry?
I'm playing.
Okay. So the relationship, you get it the same way. You will open the project task object. You go to the project field and you will find the relationship. For the sake of time, and just have it here. So now I'm getting as well like my project tasks as well. So I have the project and I got the tasks for them. So that's level number 1, 2, 3, and 4. We said we can support 5 levels. So the last one will be project activity. Let's add it together. I will get it from here to be faster as well. So I will do here, that's the parent. And I will add this one here next to it to be cleaner. It's within the brackets of the project tasks because the project task is the parent of project task activity. I will do my subquery. Again, I went to the object, to the field to find the relationship name. Now I will run, no issues. And I got as well my activities along with the tasks and everything here. It tells you that this is contact 0, project 1, task 0, and this is the activity number 1 for it. So that means this is the second activity. Okay. Now the question is, and we want to see the error together. And I know it will give an error because Salesforce currently is supporting only 5 levels. Can I go to the 6th level? The answer is no. But let's see it in action so you feel like you saw what's the error and you understand it more. I'll go here because the command, the parent for it is the task activity. I will go here and I will add my select statement for the subquery, and I will try to run it. Here, as we expect, it will give me an error. It tells me that, okay, I'm really sorry, you cannot go beyond level 5. Or it tells you 4 levels from the root. So it's the same. Like either you count root as levels 1, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Some people say 5 level by counting the root as one of them. But in total, from where you are, you have 5 levels maximum. So I can now go to the activity here. If you want to have the activity, you can have another query based on the activity. You can get the comment, or if you don't need the account, you can start your query from contact, and that will give you 5 levels. So it's just 5 level of parent-child relationship that you can query in your SOQL. We want to see how we can use this in Apex. So same, I would take that and write the query here as is. And that will return a list of, do you know which, the S object type?
Accounts, right?
Account, correct. So as we said, it's always the data type of the root of the main query. So my root or main query is account, so it will return a list of accounts. Then how we can access them the same way as we did before. So I will loop through accounts because that's the first list I got. And then you can loop through the second one. So you go from down to up. The second level that you can loop through is
Contacts.
contacts, correct? So we are on account. So for each account, we can get the context. So as if we are going from backward, like here. So I will go here for contact from account object dot contacts. And we will continue the same way. Let me get it here. So you'll find yourself going level by level, like contacts. Then from contacts, you go to project, project task, activity. So that's what we are doing here. For each contact, you get the projects. From the projects, you get to the tasks. From the tasks, you get to the activity. Then you can write a debug statement that tells you what's the task name, it's related to which project, to which contact, to which account. Okay, I got here the subquery with the comments. So it gave me, if you didn't see it, when I ran here, it tells me you cannot use more than 4 levels from the root. So, and that's because I copied here the statements, the SOQL statement that had 6 levels, not just 5. So I remove this. Now it should work. Here it's complaining because I named this list accounts. I will execute it. And now I can see what's the activity name, from which project, from which task. I got all the details that I needed to print. I printed. Again, in real life, do I have to have all these nested loops? No. Sometimes you want to get all the accounts along with their all sub queries or like all the entities related to it. And then maybe you will send an email for the contacts. Then you go through the project in a later stage to update it to be done. And maybe you don't need the task for now, but later you do something else. So it depends on the situation, whether or not you will have all those nested for loops together or not. Like sometimes you have to do something first with the account. For example, I can do here account object dot annual revenue equal 100, and I want to update it first. So you can need, sometimes you need to do some logic with each level, or you may not need to get the 5 levels. It's just a good thing that now it supports those 5 levels. In the past, we couldn't. Like in the past, it was account and contacts, 2 levels, and that's it. So it's a big improvement or big change that sometimes we had to do maps and get the accounts. What's the account and the contact ID? Then we get the another map where the contact ID is the key and the values are the projects. And then we start using the 2 maps together to be able to have as if we have the 3 levels. So now with the subqueries, we have much flexibility or capabilities to use it. Definitely be more careful when or when to use it or when to go for nested queries. I'm sure it's like it will be longer to run and it will like be slower. So if there is no need to have all those subqueries, don't go for it. Like use whatever you need based on the situation you have. Any questions?
No question.
Okay. We'll try to go through the dynamic SOQL as well. Are you okay if we go a little bit over like 5-10 minutes?
Yes, yes, sure. I'm very fine.
Okay. So the point is I want to finish the SOQL and I don't feel like leaving the dynamic SOQL just for next time. So the dynamic SOQL, we touched base on it when we were talking about S objects together. And the idea about it is that when we write a query like this, it's not dynamic. Like I know I want to select name, industry, annual revenue from contact, even like without the subquery. So that's not dynamic. I have a static query where I want to get those values from the account. So dynamic means I can be, for example, where industry and for example, I will get a list from the user to tell me I want for the tech and biochemistry accounts only to be returned. And maybe I give the user interface to choose the industries that they are interested in. So I don't know in advance while writing that I want to get only for technology, where industry equal tech. I cannot do that. If I'm giving the user an option to choose and based on what they select, I will show the results. So dynamic queries is used and allows Salesforce or us developers to build and execute queries at runtime. At runtime means it's dynamic. You don't know in advance. You will be building it using string, and we'll see together how to do it. And it's useful, as I said, like when you want the user to select, for example, the industries they are interested in. So that may impact the where clause in your query. And that gives you some flexibility as well. How we can do that in Apex. So let's open here and I will have a string of query. that I want to run. And I'm assuming like tech here, it just because I don't have an LWC now that I can show you, and it's like beyond the focus we have for Apex. So I have it hard coded here that user enter tech. Assume here this user input. So I can do here string user input, and I will write tech. So you can assume user input is coming from the UI. So that's where we can use, like, I don't have square brackets. I have the whole query in strings because I'm building the string while like I'm building the string at runtime, because I will get the user input from the user from the UI, and I will build the query. How you can execute it? I will use something called database.query. Database.query. Database is a class that Salesforce provides to us, and it has a method called query. So, and here I will name this query string, and I will pass the query string to it. It takes text in the format of a SOQL that it will execute. The database.query return, it doesn't know because this is a class generic that can be used to return accounts or contacts or projects, custom object. So it doesn't know. And that's why it won't return a specific S object. It will return the dynamic S object we spoke about before. So it will return S list of S objects. So it will return results, list of results. And I can query, I can loop through them. The data type I will be looping through them is S object, result object from list of results. And you can debug system.debug. And I will do here a debug statement for me. And I print result object. This one will print it for me, no issues, but we'll have a problem that we faced before. If I want, for example, to just print the name, I don't want to show ID and everything of the account. So if I go back here and say, I want account and say result object dot name, here it will start to tell me that I have an issue. The name doesn't exist. And the reason why, if you remember when we talked about downcasting and upcasting, here I'm using the parent, which is S object. So it doesn't know about name or industry or anything in the account. To do and be able to do that, we have to typecast result to account. So I have to do account equal account object, it's a name, and I will cast it as account. So I will take the result object and say, convert it to account. And say, here I will say account object dot name. I will print it now, no issues, because now I downcast it from the S object to account. So I can access the account name. Okay, another thing that you could do, instead of like typecasting one by one, you could typecast the whole list. So instead of list of S object, you could do that. You can say list of objects of account, and you will typecast the whole list. So I will do like that. That means the database.query, I know it will return me a list of S object, but before assigning the result to my variable, I want you to convert it to a list of account instead of list of S objects. And in that case, I can loop directly as account. And I see here, I'm looking through the results, and I will write here system.debug account object, and I can say account object.name directly. It won't cause an issue because the whole list is typecast, so one by one is an account. So that's something you have to be careful with database.query. Database.query is used, takes a string, so it's used with dynamic strings, dynamic SOQL. Just be careful that it return a list of S objects. So whether you will need to typecast one by one if needed, or you can typecast the whole result to be the list of the S object that you want to deal with. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, it's not clear.
Okay, great. So the next thing that we want to close the session with is that dynamic queries is very, very important and you may need it, but you have to be very careful with it because dynamic SOQL give you the flexibility and everything, but there is a potential risk of SOQL injection. SOQL injection, what that means, we'll see it with now together, and we'll see how we can prevent it. But it's a security risk that you have to be careful with. So as you saw, the dynamic queries are built as strings and they can be vulnerable. Vulnerable how? Okay, let me take this for you in the debug console and go through it. Here, again, I'm assuming that the name will come from the UI, as if I'm giving the user an interface to write text. So they can enter Bob, they can enter Sally, they can enter whatever they want. So here, I will have my query dynamic SOQL that tells me I want to get contact, the ID of the contact from the ID from contact where it's not deleted and the name is like it has Bob in the name. And then I'm printing the query after I concatenate things together, and I will do database.query and I will print it here. So let's try together. In my case, I don't have any contact with that name, which you have to remember, like it doesn't have anything and it's not returning any values for me. But sometimes attackers or hackers, sometimes they can manipulate the text that they entered. So for example, here they can, and you will see here, the select statement is from contact where is deleted is false and name is like Bob. Sometimes they can do that. They can enter something like this at the end. They will say like Bob, they close the single quote bracket and they will have an or. The name is like anything. It doesn't matter. Let's see that. And the intent was to get Bob, or I am giving the user an interface to enter text to get something like they enter a name and as if they are searching for a contact that matched that name. I don't want them to see all the contacts in my database. So if I execute it now, the result is, see, it became select ID from contact where the same as Bob, but they added an or, the name is like anything. So that ended up getting to the user everything. And that's a huge risk because sometimes they can manipulate the SOQL statement and not just return extra data, they can delete records. So it's known even with SQL, it's called SQL injection. So we have its SOQL injection, it's similar to SQL injection. So attackers can manipulate user input to change behavior of the query, as we saw, like we were expecting to get names with Bob. And when we ran that correctly, it returned nothing. But then they manipulated, or we tried to manipulate it to show you how it works. And we added like in this string that we are entering to give an or, the name is anything. So it can cause unauthorized data access and maybe they can delete records. So it's very important to know how to avoid those. There is two ways to avoid that. One of them is avoid using dynamic SOQL queries, and we use static queries with binding variables. We'll see it together. The second one is use escape single quotes. Let's try with the escape single quotes. Escape single quotes, if you remember in one of the sessions of SOQL, we're talking that the single quote is very important and it's reserved character. So if you want to search for something with single quote, we were doing backslash to ignore it. So the same, escape single quote will do the same. It will look for the text you have, and any single quote, it will add the backslash to treat it as not a reserved keyword, as a string that they are meant to search. So again, you see here, we are getting everything. All what I will do is that the name, I will use string dot escape single quotes. It's a method in the string class that will add the backslash before any single quotes. And you will see how that will make a difference. Remember, when we didn't have the escape single quotes, we got all the accounts and we got contacts and we got an or here in the query. If I do execute now with this escape single quote, now I didn't get anything because it's not treating anymore the text that they entered as commands or as the reserved keyword. It's used more as like text. So it messed up, like their query is still seems the same because that's what they entered, that they have a or a name, but as if we're looking for this as a whole in the name. So the result was they didn't get anything. So if there is an attacker that was trying to get all the context, they will fail. So that's why it's very important. The other way to do that, instead of having the dynamic query here and having escape single quotes, you could use a static query and use binding variable. How we can do that? Simply, you can have your query as if it's a regular query. You have everything, but when you go for the area where you want it to be dynamic, you do column and variable name. And variable name here, you will be like that. So I will take the name that the user will enter. So let's say they enter it like that. What they had, I will add the like symbols before and after, and all of that will be added instead of this colon query name, but it's not concatenated. Like I don't concatenate it myself as we did with the dynamic SQL and SOQL and the strings is here. I'm just using static and query and just using that. And here I don't need to use database.query anymore because that will execute and it will return the query results directly in this list. So I can check the result directly. I don't need to run database.query. If I execute this now, I got 0 results. If I enter regular Bob, or I don't know, I think I have John here. If I do John in my contacts, I believe, yeah. So I returned 3 contacts. So it's working just to return the records that you are interested in. So that's another way to do it. Whether you go with dynamic queries and use database.query, make sure you use the escape single quotes, or whenever possible, use the binding variables with static SOQL statements. That will give you also protection against SOQL injections. So those are the 2 ways that you can defend against SOQL injection. Any questions?
No, it's all good.
Okay, great. So that will conclude the session for today. Thank you so much for listening to the session. If you are watching offline, thank you for watching. Next time, we'll start SOQL, the search language, instead of query language. We'll learn more about it. how to use it, and we'll try to make it more clear if anyone's still confused. What's the difference between the two, and when you decide to go with SOQL versus SOSL or vice versa. That concluded the SOQL. No more SOQL, except at the end we'll discuss the comparison and we'll discuss some best practices if we have time. So if you have any questions, go to the previous videos of SOQL. Maybe the answer would be there. If not, send me a message with your question and I will do my best to answer you. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Slack. I'd be happy to help you whenever possible. Again, thank you so much, and I will see you next week. And enjoy your evening, and thank you for watching.